Okay, hello. I was just gonna run through the first workout and do a couple reps of each of the exercises for both the barbell, kettlebell, and dumbbell options. There are videos, of course, in the True Coach app, but I just wanted to kind of run through a couple of the cueing that I think is important or to pay attention to, especially if you're newer to lifting. So, first workout, make sure that you've done your warm up. So I've already warmed up. And we're gonna start with a kettlebell deadlift. So this is of course one of the options, kettlebell deadlift. There is a dumbbell deadlift option. There's a trap bar, which I don't have. And then there is a barbell deadlift option. So again, I'm just gonna run through a couple of the main cues that I just really want you to pay attention to when you're doing these exercises, and then we'll move on to the next exercise. So, kettlebell deadlift. I want to make sure that the kettlebell is actually right in between your ankle bones, right? So from the side, it's here between my ankle bones. It's not here. Okay, same thing when you're using the dumbbell. You want to be directly over top of either that kettlebell or the dumbbell. And again, think of it just placing it right in between your ankle bones. Great position for it. It's a hinge movement, so we want to keep our hips high versus a squat where our hips, right, drop down, okay? The other thing is our feet placement. So with our deadlifts, our hinge movements, our feet are gonna be more hip width versus a squat where we're more kind of shoulder width, okay? And feet, as far as position, right, kind of straight on or a little bit out, whatever is comfortable there for you is perfectly fine. So I'm gonna line up directly over that kettlebell or that dumbbell, right? I'm gonna close down my rib cage. I don't want to be flared open here. So I'm going to close down that rib cage. I'm going to think of connecting kind of rib cage to hip bones. And then literally I'm going to chop my hips back because I want to keep my hips nice and high. So I'm going to chop my hips back. I've closed that rib cage. I'm going to kind of bend down till I find the handle of that kettlebell. Again, my hips are always going to stay higher than my knees, which is opposite than a squat. When I find that handle, I want to grip it, and I actually want to think about kind of like ripping it apart, okay? What that's going to do is it's going to engage my lats. The other way of thinking about it is if I was to squeeze an orange in the back of my armpit, or I like to tell people, like if I stuck a piece of paper in the back of your armpit, I need you to pinch it and keep it there. Don't let me pull that piece of paper out at any time. Okay, that's the same with any of your deadlift movements, with the kettlebell, the dumbbell, and the barbell, right? So again, right between my ankle bones, I'm gonna close my rib cage down. I'm gonna chop at those hips. I'm gonna find that handle. I'm gonna close off the back of my armpits. So I'm gonna squeeze that orange or pinch that piece of paper, or I'm gonna rip the handle apart. I'm gonna take a big breath in into my low belly. So I'm here. Big breath in, really brace, neck is nice and neutral, and I'm gonna think about pushing the floor away as I stand up. Bell stays nice and close into my body the whole time. I'm just gonna literally reverse that motion. I'm gonna think about chopping my hips back. Bell stays directly in line with my body, and I'm gonna return it straight down to between my ankle bones again, okay? What I'm not gonna do is I'm not gonna round that low back, separate those back of those armpits, round to the low back, and place that kettlebell out in front of me. You almost wanna feel like you're reaching back with it. So again, one more time. Close down my rib cage, right? Chop back at my hips. Reach down for that kettlebell. Neck is nice and neutral. I'm gonna close off the back of my armpits. I'm really gonna grip that kettlebell. Big breath in, right? And then I'm gonna push the floor away as I stand up. Nice tall position at the top. Make sure you're not shrugging at the top. We always want to think about anti-shrugging those shoulders, keeping them down and away from our ears. Okay, from that side position again, I'm just going to reverse it. I'm going to chop those hips back. I'm going to keep the back of my armpits closed. Nice proud chest so I'm not rounding through my spine. And then I'm going to place that kettlebell right down between my ankle bones again. If I had the dumbbell, same thing. Right? I'm here, same exact position, all the same movement patterns. I'm just up, and then I'm straight back down. Okay? If we get to have two, we're just gonna have a little bit wider with our legs. We call that more of a sumo stance. So here I am about more shoulder width. My feet are turned about 45 degrees out or so, okay? Rib cage, chop, big breath in, lock the back of those armpits off, and then I'm coming up, okay? So from the side, I would be here, right? Really make sure not rounding through the back. Hips stay higher than my knees, up and down. Same thing with dumbbells. I would just hold on to a dumbbell in each hand. Cool? All right, so if we move it on to our barbell deadlift. When I go to line up for this barbell deadlift, right, I want my feet again to be about hip width apart. They can be slightly turned out, that's perfectly fine, right? I want to think about the barbells lined up over my laces of my foot. From here, same kind of mechanics. I want to stack that rib cage. I want to anti-shrug my shoulders from the start. So I'm going to think about pulling myself actively down to the bar versus like willy-nilly going down to the bar, okay? Your setup is your first rep. Make sure you do it the same every time and be as active and create as much intention in your setup as you do in rep number 2, rep number 3, rep number 4. Same thing with your last rep. Never lose form on your last rep. I see that a lot. So setup is always your first rep. Keep form throughout, right? Really focus on bracing and breathing before you lift any kind of heavy weight. So barbells lined up right over my laces. From here, rib cage is stacked. I'm gonna chop back at those hips. I'm gonna actively pull myself down to that barbell. Before I go to lift, right, I wanna think about pulling that barbell into my shins, kind of, right? Because that's what's gonna get those lats to engage. That's pinching off the back of the armpits. That's squeezing that orange. So I highly recommend that you wear long pants or socks. There's even shin guards that you can wear for lifting or deadlifting, because literally I want that barbell being pulled into your shin and your leg the entire time. I never want that barbell to lose contact with your skin, basically. So wear something to kind of buffer that, because you will get bruises. I have them, but if you're doing it right and creating as much tension and getting those lats to engage, which is ultimately going to really help protect your low back, make sure you're pulling that barbell into you, okay? From the side view, you notice when I pull myself down to the barbell, my shoulders are gonna be slightly in front of the barbell itself. I want to be able to stack my shoulders right directly over the top of that barbell. So that's the wedge that we talk about. So I want to actively thinking about create tension, pulling or wedging myself between the barbell and the floor, okay? You'll see when I do that I'll go from being slightly in front of the barbell with my shoulders to being kind of directly stacked over top. You'll also see that my shins get a little bit more vertical there, which again, because I want that straight to pull up the body. I don't want to have to go around my knees. So if we think about it, when I'm in that position, right, I'm going to extend my knees first and then my hips, okay? That's so I can have that straight barbell path. When I reverse it, just the opposite. I'm gonna hinge my hips back first until I get past my knees, then I'm gonna bend my knees, right? So coming up, I'm gonna straighten my knees first until that barbell comes right over top of the knees, and then hips come forward. Reversing it, hips go back first until I pass the knees, and then I'm gonna bend the knees to bring the barbell down to the ground. So let's put it all together. So I'm lined up, barbell's kind of right over the laces of my shoes. I'm gonna create tension. I'm gonna stack that rib cage. I'm gonna chop those hips back. I'm gonna find that barbell. My hands are just literally right outside of my shins, okay? I'm not out here. I'm in really close. That's so I can get as much lat engagement as I can. Right, from here I'm gonna think about wedging myself up between the barbell and the floor, or stacking my shoulders over that barbell. So I'm gonna take a big breath in. I'm gonna stack my shoulders so my shins are nice and vertical. Now my shoulders are more over top of that barbell versus here, right? So I'm in that more stacked position. Big breath, create as much tension as I can without actually lifting the barbell. If you heard that, there's a little bit of play in the barbell. We want to make sure that when we're wedging, we're taking all of that play out of the barbell before we even lift it. Because if we don't, our initial lift is going to be taking that play out, and what we'll see is that you'll actually get a little bit of movement in that low back, okay? Until the barbell kind of catches up with you, and then you'll be able to lift it. So make sure you get that plate out of the barbell first, create as much tension as you can, big brace in that low belly, and then you're gonna think of actively just pushing the floor away as you stand up. I know I keep saying we're gonna do it, and then I stop, but we're gonna do it this time, I promise. So, laces, rib cage is stacked, core's engaged. I want you to chop back at those hips, actively pull yourself down to the barbell. Grip the barbell as hard as you can. From here, I'm gonna wedge myself underneath. So, I'm gonna stack those shoulders up over. I'm gonna shoot my hips back slightly. My shins are nice and vertical. Big breath in, brace. Right? I'm gonna pull that whole time the barbell into me, pinching the back of my shoulder blades. That barbell never leaves my skin. Now I'm gonna reverse it. I'm gonna shoot my hips back. That barbell again is sliding right down my legs. Once I pass my knees, I'm gonna bend my knees. Okay? So, wedge, close off the back of those armpits, create tension, push the floor away. Pass my knees, my hips extend. Okay? From here, my hips shoot back. Pass my knees. I'm gonna bend my knees down to the ground. So I'm just gonna show you a few reps, just to get a few reps in there for you. So, big breath in, down, create tension, wedge, pinch those armpits, come up, back down. Nice. At the top, make sure that we're not hyperextending through that low back. We come up to a nice straight plane. Whew, that was a lot. Cool. So, I hope that helped. There's your 3 options for your deadlift. Next we'll move on to the push press, but it'll be a new video. Cool. Cheers.